Hi, Matt with eTrailer. If you have a 2022 Toyota 4Runner and you're looking for a very aggressive chain to get you through those extreme situations, then the Glacier Tire Chains with the V-bars, twist links, and cams are going to be a great option for you. So let's check it out. Now we're going to have this on tire size 265/70R17. That's just the tire size we have today. This will fit a variety of other sizes. And we're going to have this on our rear axle. It's what the manual recommends. Now, if you're not sure this is going to fit your vehicle, you can actually plug in your vehicle into our fit guide to find the right one for you. And like I said, this is going to be a very aggressive tire chain, and that's really because we have these V-bars on top. They're going to have these very sharp edges to them. They're going to be ideal for those extra deep snow and ice situations. Now, if you're driving through any areas that have a few patchy, snowy spots where you can see that pavement through, I wouldn't recommend these for it, just because it could tear up the pavement, but it's just going to depend on your situation. And they'll also be constructed from a low carbon steel. That's just going to make them a little bit softer, so they might not last as long as some more premium chains. And these are going to sit up quite a bit, just since they do have that V-bar design, but we should still have plenty of space to sit underneath your suspension. And we're going to have this ladder pattern design. With that ladder pattern, that's going to give you more traction when you're stopping and starting. And if you look at the center, we're going to have this cam. There's going to be a total of 4 of them, and this is just going to help get our chains on here nice and tight. Since we are going to have 4, it's going to evenly distribute that tension, and it's just going to be a much better alternative than not having any. Because if you look at the bottom, we're just going to have this hook that grabs onto some extra links. And as you probably figured out, if you've ever put on chains, that can be pretty tough to get this into a tight spot. Now, I still recommend using a rubber tensioner, and I recommend it because what's going to happen a lot of times with chains is when you're on the road, a lot of time they're going to shift. And when they shift, they usually loosen up. So what this is going to ensure is it's going to constantly apply tension to your chains, so even if they are going to loosen up, they're still going to be nice and tight. It's just going to give you a lot more peace of mind. Now, this isn't going to come with your kit. You'll have to invest in this separately, but you can find plenty of these on our website if you don't already own one. Now, what this kit will come with is going to be 2 sets of chains. When we have this light-duty bag and this key to tighten down your chains. Now, I'm not a super big fan of this bag, and that's going to be because of this material. Since these do have V-bars on them, this can easily just rip right out through this bag. So I'd actually recommend just investing in a small tote. In my opinion, I think this is going to be a great aggressive chain for you if you're going through those more extreme situations. Now, if you're just driving through some extreme situations, but you're a little bit worried that you might go through some patchy areas, then I'd recommend checking out the P-Wag tire chains, because those are going to be some very large links and they're going to have a lot of bite. And I think it's still great for the extreme situations, but they're going to be at a much more premium price range. So if you're still on a budget, but you want that aggressive chain, I think this is going to be a great option for you. And if you are curious about that installation, just stay tuned and we'll walk you through the process. To start off the installation, I like to grab some gloves just to make this process a bit easier, and then I like to lay out my chains, just so I can check a few things. The things I like to check are to make sure we don't have any damages to our links. So we're looking for any scuffs, any kind of dents, and make sure the welds look good. We also want to make sure that these hooks are facing up, so they're away from your tire, and that these cams aren't already tightened down and they're furthest away from your tire and closest to you. Once you've figured that out, then we can start putting this on our tire. The best way I like to do this is just by grabbing from the center. And if you haven't done this before, I recommend trying it out at home, because trying to figure this out on the side of the road in the middle of a blizzard can be pretty tough. And what we're looking for here is to make sure it's properly seated. So you don't want it to be hanging down too low, making contact with your rim. You want it even on both ends. So I'm just going to adjust that some. We're doing that throughout a whole tire and chain. And then we're going to get to the point where we're getting to the edges. Here we can really just situate the ends of these chains a bit better so we can make our connections. Speaking of those connections, I like to start with the back side because that's the harder side. And this is basically just going to be connecting the side with the hook and the side with the links. And you're just going to be grabbing onto a point where it feels pretty tight. Now you don't want this to be too tight because it's not going to give you an even fit on both ends. So you might have to do this a couple times, just going back and forth, adjusting this. You'll eventually get to the point where this one feels good, and then we can move to the other side. And it's going to be the same thing on the front side. Just finding a good point where this feels nice and tight. There we have it. And then just go back through and kind of shake this out a bit. You might even be able to shake out a tad bit of slack. See if you can get this a little bit tighter. And that feels pretty good for us. But you can see this is still pretty loose, and that's where those cams are going to come in hand. So I'm going to grab this key. We're going to have the flat end to it. We're just going to line it up with this hole that's centered on there. You're just going to line that key up and then turn it, and then it's going to tighten it down a bit. Now sometimes you won't have to tighten all these cams because it'll already get tightened enough. In this case, we're doing pretty good, but I might check it as I go. So right now, up here feels great. But if I reach over here, this is pretty good, pretty tight, but I think I can do a little bit better. So I'm going to grab that key again and tighten up the last one. And from here, you just go through it the whole chain, making sure everything fits the way you want it to. I'm still going to grab that rubber tensioner because this is going to be able to really help us out a lot for the reasons I was talking about earlier. And when you do this, you want to make sure that this hook is facing away from your tire so it doesn't puncture anything. I also like to put this on in a star pattern so it's evenly dispersed throughout the whole chain. And you might get an awkward fit at first. If you do, you can adjust this to fit your needs a bit better. And then again, just kind of pull on it to make sure it still feels good. Once that's done, you can repeat that process on the other side. Afterwards, you can pull forward and back it up some just to make sure everything's sitting correct. And if it is, you can take it out for a ride. But that was just a look at the Glacier Tire Chains with the V-bars, twist links, and cams on our 2022 Toyota 4Runner. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.